Hi, my name's Rusty Young. I'm the presenter and narrator of Wildlands and also the author of Marching Powder.
Thank you. So, the first question is, you spend a lot of years now traveling through South America and taking this narco research journey and experiencing the drug problem closely. At what point did you realize you were going all in? Could you tell us a bit about your first thoughts back then? Weren't you afraid?
Yeah, when I first started, I first went to South America, I'd never been around cocaine at all, and I was a law student, so if you, as a lawyer, if you take drugs, you lose your professional certificate, so I'd never been around drugs, never been a big drug taker or anything, and then I went to the prison just because I was fascinated, and inside everyone inside was a drug trafficker, and it was the cheapest and purest cocaine available apparently in the world, and that was when I met Thomas and just had the most amazing night of my life. I'd still say it's the most amazing night of my life, spending a night in prison, and he was, there's lots of cocaine on the table, and it just opened my eyes. I was like, what am I doing on holidays, in a prison? And that was the night that I decided to write a book. So it was completely unplanned. And then I ended up spending 4 months inside San Pedro prison, living with Thomas McFadden, who was the convicted English drug trafficker, and obviously started researching cocaine, how it was made, how it was sold, looking at the market, looking at the effects that it has on society, looking at the war on drugs. And then when I left Bolivia, I moved to Colombia, and I stayed there for 7 years straight, but in total more like a decade. And Colombia is probably the country that's been the most affected up until recently by the war on drugs and by cocaine trafficking and all the cartels, and I saw that firsthand. When I first went there, there were very, very few tourists because people were scared. There was kidnappings that had the highest murder rate in the world. Colombia had the highest rate of kidnapping, the highest murder rate per capita in the world, the highest murder rate of journalists in the world. So to ask questions about drug trafficking is certainly taking a big risk, but by that stage I was like really committed to trying to find out what was really going on. And so I made contacts and I spoke the language, and just gradually, bit by bit, started to make contacts and work my way up the chain to talk to money launderers. I talked to members of terrorist organizations. I went and investigated cocaine submarines. That was fascinating. I saw the very first cocaine submarine in around 2000. It was a Russian. I was using Russian blueprints stolen from from Russia, the Russian Navy during the Cold War, and they'd translated it into Spanish, and they were building this huge 100-foot, steel submarine. That was the very first ever cocaine submarine, and now they've got them refined down to sort of 10-meter. Fiberglass ones that can't be detected.
Mobile.
Yeah, a lot more mobile, difficult to detect, and they're cheap to make. So what they do is they just move the cocaine and they just sink them. It's like so much money they can just afford to sink a.
Weren't you afraid seeing all that? I mean, weren't you shocked?
Yeah, after living in a prison for 4 months, I think my tolerance for danger had increased quite significantly, and obviously, if you look at Wildlands documentary, all those people, I think I said at the end, were in some ways addicted to their professions and the adrenaline and the thrill seeking, and I think if I'm honest, I can say that's also true of me, and that's probably what allows me to relate to those people in Wildlands, because I'm one of those people, just not a lawbreaker and not a drug taker or a DEA agent, but I love it. I find it fascinating. I find the people fascinating, and I really wanted to. My aim in all this was to write books, obviously, and expose to the world what's really going on. Because I think, for a long time, there's just got this sort of distant thing. Oh, this problem in Bolivia, this problem in Colombia, and what we don't realize is that our own drug-taking behaviours in the West actually has a huge impact on these countries in terms of corruption and violence. And so I'm really, really passionate about bringing that to the world's attention and making that link, and then helping. I'm not moralising anywhere in Wildlands by saying, hey, just let people make their own decisions, but make sure once they've got the information to make the right decisions. And maybe one day, you know, the world will change its behaviours, or you just never know what's going to happen in the future. But the changes are always gradual, and I think documentaries like Wildlands are actually very important turning points for, you know, in history, where people suddenly go, oh wow, I didn't know that, and now I do.
I wanted to ask you about Thomas McFadden.
Yes.
You said he was a convicted drug trafficker.
Yes.
What made you trust him? How did you become friends? Tell us a bit about your relationship with him.
Yeah, okay, so Thomas, you know, he's a black English drug trafficker, and so and you have to go inside this prison. You leave your passport at the gate, and then they just open this big iron gate, and it shuts behind you, and you're in the prison with all the prisoners.
And you paid for that.
You paid for that, yeah. At the time, I think it was $5 US, and the guards got $2.50, and Thomas got $2.50, so it was a fairly corrupt system. And $2.50 doesn't sound like much, but
fairly corrupt.
Fairly corrupt. Very corrupt. I was trying to be diplomatic. It was a very corrupt system. And $2.50 doesn't sound like much, but it's a lot in a poor country when you're trying to survive in a prison. So I came in, I was like, uh-oh, bang, the middle gate clanged behind me. And then I see this really friendly, open-faced guy called Thomas, and he goes, hello, I'm Thomas. I'm Thomas the tour guide, how are you? And he obviously he'd done it so many times, so he knew how to put people at ease. And he said, look, don't worry, I will look after you. I've got my bodyguard here, you're not in danger. So he learned everyone's name on the tour. He was really charming, really funny. And I was like, this is changing my perception already, because I think, you know, drug smuggler convicted in a, you know, dangerous third world prison, you know, this is not going to be this is not a clever move for a lawyer on holidays.
For sure.
But he was just really, really friendly, and he took us around. He made us laugh. He remembered everyone's name in the tour group. So he's a real. You can meet him. You know, hopefully you can do an interview with him. But he's very, very engaging. And at the end of the tour, out of the 15 people or so there, he chose me and my girlfriend and one other traveller, and he said, "You guys come up to our room." And he said, and then suddenly he's like, hey, and he pulls out a CD case and starts putting out cocaine, and I'm like, no way, I'm not going to fall for that one, you know.
Very friendly.
Yeah, very friendly. So, yeah, I mean, he was, you know, we became really, some would say instant friends. It sounds like a cliche, but it really was. And after spending the night there, and he really opened up and told me his whole life story, I was like, this is an amazing place, and he's an amazing guy. Let's write a book. And we did.
I see. Another question. Yeah. Do you feel safe considering everything that you've said and done, and also exposing the material and information that you gather? Do you feel that you might affect also the safety of the people you came in touch?
I personally feel safe. I think I can handle myself. I know the language, I know the lie of the territory in South America. There was a certain amount of risk going back into the prison in Bolivia, because I'd been deported from there before for writing the book and doing a documentary. As far as Colombia goes, I'm about to release my next book called Colombiano in August, and that's going to talk about the terrorist organizations in Colombia that are trafficking cocaine. That's the point where I'm not going back to Colombia, right? I love Colombia. It's my favorite country in the world, apart from Australia. But that's the point where I won't go back. And when I was doing all these investigations, I was driving a bulletproof car, so I kept a low profile. I changed houses 10 times, and so I was just, you know, just be very, very cautious. As far as your question about the interviewees, I think that was a really good question asked by someone in the audience yesterday. All the interviewees in Wildlands were completely, they volunteered. You know, we obviously contacted them and said, do you want to do an interview? They all agreed to it. And as I said yesterday, each of them has their motives in telling their story, you know, and my aim would never be to put anyone's life in danger. And if they wanted to do an anonymous interview or blank their faces out, we could have done that. But they wanted to be on camera. They wanted to tell their stories.
I see. Could you tell us a little bit about Popeye?
Popeye.
What is it like to discuss such matters with a person who's taken so many lives, and still you accused him of being disloyal? How on earth did you manage to talk to him and film him?
Yeah, okay, so John Jairo Velázquez is nicknamed Popeye. He was Pablo Escobar's chief assassin. He has admitted to 250 murders by his own hand, and he's been held responsible for 3,000. He had a team of sicarios, or hitmen, assassins, and he would just order them to go off and kill people. They killed thousands of policemen. They put a price on policemen's head. They said, anyone who goes and shoots a policeman in the head, come and just tell us about it and we'll give you $500. And so these guys just created utter chaos. He's an absolute, there's no doubt, he's an absolute psychopath. During the interview I asked him, what's your happiest moment, what's your saddest moment? And he said, I don't really have one. I said, do you have any ups and downs in life? He said, no. So he had, if you read all the character qualities of a psychopath, he fulfills every single one of them. He was very charming, I must say. He was friendly, he was courteous, but it was difficult to kind of bear in mind that he's still a killer. And he did say a number of times, I was an assassin, I am an assassin, I always will be an assassin. So yeah, that was probably my scariest interview. We had armed security guard there, and he had his own sicarios, his own hitmen there on motorbikes with their pistols and stuff in the background. So there was a lot of tension there. We had a film crew, so they were like, and of course the film crew couldn't understand Spanish, so I was kind of looking out to make sure that the film crew was all right, and then obviously I was concerned about when I asked really hard questions that he was going to get angry.
Yeah, did he get angry? The look on his eyes was ice cold.
Yeah, I think he just looked at me like he wanted to kill me.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was probably the hardest question I had to ask. I didn't have to ask. I just thought, you know what? I was angry at him, to be honest. I know his story very well. You know, he's very well known, and he got out of, you know, he paid 1 month of prison per life that he took. So to me, that seemed like a pretty small sentence. And he's not at all repentant, and he's done a lot of damage, and he's walking around like he's a hero. He walks around signing.
Actually, that's my follow-up question. He seemed to get along with the people in the video. He's a known killer. How is that possible? Are the people afraid of him?
Okay,
Have they forgiven him?
No, you need to remember that the Colombian government has never done anything for poor people. They've just robbed the country blind. The politicians have robbed the country blind. Pablo Escobar recruited all his hitmen from the poor slums. They're called comunas, or in Brazil you'd call them the favelas. So from the poor slums of Medellin, that's where people had really high unemployment, no money. They're living in really, you know, I mean, like they're building their houses brick by brick. You know, just get $1 and buy a brick, and that's the next layer. Like they're so poor, and the government had never given them anything. And then Pablo Escobar came in with his millions, and he actually created an entire suburb and gave people houses. Now, was he doing this for altruistic purposes? No. He wanted to bribe them to become a member of the Parliament of Congress, and he did that. He got elected to Congress in Colombia. As a result of that, he's still seen by the poor people as being a hero. He's a kind of a Robin Hood type character, and a lot of that goodwill is still there for Popeye. So when he goes in there, he's associated with someone who said, you know what, we poor people can take you on, and we, you know, so he's very safe when he goes into those slums. But when he's out on the street, that's when he's afraid, because obviously he's got a lot of enemies, he's killed a lot of people, and so there are countless people who wouldn't mind seeing him not around anymore.
How do you feel about the situation of Carlos Toro? Do you think maybe you can help him in some way, maybe through your documentary?
Yes, so he's really afraid of being deported, and so that's why he went public, because under the Patriot Act, his citizenship was revoked after 27 years, and basically he's currently facing deportation. So his aim in coming public was to say, look, I've been mistreated, I do not want to be sent back to Colombia because I'll be killed. I did create a bond with him, and in fact, Friday, tomorrow, I'm going fly over to see him, and he wants me to write a book about his life. So I haven't agreed to that yet, but that's something that's come out of, another great thing that's come out of Wildlands is potentially writing his book.
I see.
I felt really sorry for him, to be honest, yeah. I mean, I don't have any way of verifying at this stage the claims that he made in Wildlands. They were his views, but if he can provide me proof, then we might talk about a potential book.
Also, I wanted to ask you, did you try to interview Carlos Leder as well?
Carlos Leder is in prison in the US. He's a half Colombian, half German citizen. He's applied a number of times to be repatriated to Germany or Colombia, and the US government says no. As far as I know, he's never been allowed an interview. No. He sends letters to the government, but he doesn't. That would have been ideal. That would have been the perfect interview, because he was
the key character.
He's the key character between all of them. But the Americans have got him locked down.
I see. One final question. Do you feel that the film will have an impact to the world, to drug trafficking or to the cocaine trade? What are your hopes and thoughts for the future?
Yeah, I sincerely hope Wildlands has a big impact on educating people and making people think about these issues. That's why I did it. I'm passionate about this subject, and my hope is that, as with Marching Powder, that people will wake up and see what's going on.